it's in our Asian culture to avoid renting.
Hiya.
Instead, in Singapore, it's always been about saving up to buy a home.
Fuyo.
But in today's day and age, is this advice still relevant? We see more people our age renting nowadays. The freedom and the independence looks great, but surely it must be expensive, right? Some of us planning to get a BTO or a resale flat may have realized that they are not cheap. And as a result, the thought of renting has all crossed our minds at some point in time. But have you actually done the math to calculate how much this would actually cost you until you are 30? Is this freedom worth it, or should you be putting your ego aside? I just ran the math, and did you know that you stand to save over 100,000 in just 4 years by staying with your parents? But the real question is, how much can this help with your first home? In this video, I'll show you how the cost adds up over the years. I'll also talk about the different housing options as well as what their down payments will cost you. By the end of this video, you have a better understanding of how much you can save by the time you're 30 and what you can realistically be able to afford with this savings. Then you can decide for yourself if it is worth putting your ego aside and staying with your parents. In order to understand how much you can save by staying with your parents until 30, we first need to look at the rental prices in Singapore. If you rent a studio or one-bedder condo in Singapore, you can expect to pay around $2,000 to $3,000 a month. This number obviously varies depending on whether you're getting the whole apartment to yourself, you are sharing with some friends, or maybe you're just getting a room. So for the sake of this discussion, let's just say your rental costs you $2,000 a month. Besides the rental, you also have a few other miscellaneous costs like Wi-Fi, utilities, and groceries. A modest estimate will be about 2.3k a month, and that adds up to be around 27k a year. If you're currently 26 years old, you'll be 30 in 4 years time, and that means you'll be able to save up a total of 110k. Based on your current age, this is how much you save by staying with your parents until 30. But how much you can save is only one part of the equation. The other half is how much a home in Singapore will cost you, and more explicitly, how much your down payment is going to be. Don't forget that with inflation, this is only getting more and more expensive. Therefore, in order to understand how staying with your parents is the key to owning your own home, we also need to understand how much homes today actually cost. If you're new here, my name is Daryl, and in this channel we talk about real estate in Singapore. Remember to like and subscribe if you want more unbiased HDB and condo videos. Your housing options will vary depending on whether you go for a HDB or a condo. For the most of us, we'll probably be looking at a 4 or 5 room BTO, a 4 or 5 room resale, or maybe even a 2-bedder condo. Are these the options that you were considering for your first home, and were these the prices you were expecting? Let me know in the comment section below. But we also know that these prices are likely to increase in the future due to what we call inflation. Therefore, when we plan our finances, we also need to take into consideration what these prices may look in the future. Nobody can really predict where housing prices will go in the future, and making a precise projection is not the point of this video. So again, for the sake of discussion, let's just be conservative and take a growth rate of 2.5% per year. These numbers look huge, but you don't actually need to pay the full amount on day one when you purchase a home. In real estate, you can take a home loan, and therefore, we only need to worry about the down payment, which is 25% today for most cases. So for example, if you buy a $1 million home today, you only need to fork up 250k upfront. This 250k can come from a mix of cash or CPF, depending on whether you buy a HDB or condo, and whether you use a HDB or bank loan. Do note that this 25% has changed over the years and may change again in the future. If you're getting a HDB, there will be some grants as well. These grants can play a big role in helping you offset your down payment, as these grants are very dependent on individual circumstances, such as which home you buy, your income, and even the location of your home. I'll just ignore the grants for now. The grants actually make things easier for you, but not every additional element to think about is as helpful. There will be some additional costs that you need to cover upfront as well, such as the renovation and furnishing of your home. In today's market, this can cost anywhere between 30k and 100k. As this is something that's very highly dependent on the individual, I'll ignore this for now. After all that we talked about, you may be thinking that this video is all about staying with your family in order to save up to buy your first home. But that is a one-side argument and couldn't be further from the truth. Therefore, in order to fully cover the topic of how much you can save by staying with your parents until 30, we also need to consider what are some reasons you may actually want to spend this money and rent a place on your own. Firstly, one may prioritize moving out over the savings due to the need for more space. This could be due to multiple personal or family reasons. Another reason somebody may prioritize moving out could be personal growth or independence. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong answer here. Everybody's circumstances are different, so I don't want to harp on that too much. What I do want to emphasize is the importance of understanding the finances and long-term implications behind your rental decision. We've seen how much you can potentially save by not moving out, as well as how much a HDB or a condo would cost today. That's all great, but what does that really mean for you? In order to understand how staying with your parents is the key to owning your own home, we now need to see what you can realistically afford with these savings by the time you are 30. Overlaying the amount of savings with the future down payment amounts, you can get a good sense of how much you really stand to save by staying with your parents. By staying with your parents for 5 years, you would have saved up around 138k, enough to fully cover the down payment of a 4-room BTO. In 7 years, the number gets bigger and grows to 193k. Enough to cover the down payment for a 5-room BTO. Now when you look at this, you may be thinking, yeah, but 5 to 7 years is such a long time from now. But remember, this is just a rental and the expenses saved by staying with your parents. And this does not cover some other elements of your finances. Therefore, in order to understand how your savings will be the key to your home ownership, we also need to look at 3 other components. Like what we talked about earlier, we won't be factoring in these 3 components into the calculations in order not to overcomplicate things. But nonetheless, these 3 components are still things that you need to be aware of. The first thing is the grants available when you are buying a HDB flat. These grants can go up to 60 or even 80k, and they can be used for your down payment. So they can be used to offset the large numbers you see here, which means that you don't actually need to wait the 5 or 7 years to have the full down payment. Secondly, besides this number shown here, I'm sure you have your own other savings in terms of either cash or CPF. This also goes a long way in helping to cover your down payment. Speaking of CPF, that brings us to our last point. When buying a home, be it a HDB or a condo, you can use the funds in your CPF ordinary account. However, when you're doing things like renting or paying utilities, you can only use cash. So technically, these are 2 separate pools of funds. That said, the cash that you use for your rental can still be used for your housing if you wish, or even for your renovation or furnishing. So it is still very relevant in helping you buy your first home. One last thing to note is that this 25% shown here is only the minimum down payment. In order to have the luxury of just forking out this minimum number, you will need to get your loan approved. If you want to find out more about the loan, what sort of incomes you need to be earning, and how much interest you could end up paying over 25 to 30 years, I will link the video in the description below. So to conclude, we can say that staying with your parents indeed saves you money, and this helps you in your home ownership journey. Over the years, this sum adds up and can be essential to helping you cover the down payment for your first home, be it a resale or HDB, by the time you're 30. But we should not consider this just from a financial perspective. Both moving out or staying with your parents has their own set of benefits too, so I suggest you consider this decision holistically. Overall, everybody's situation is different and there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer. In this video, we talked about the different housing options, and you may have heard terms like HDB, condo, BTO, resale. One thing that this video has not covered yet is the pros and cons between these different options. For example, should you wait for a BTO or go straight to a resale? Or if you could afford it, should you buy a small condo over a larger resale HDB? Choosing your own home comes down to more than just a down payment. You may want to think about things like the wait time, the sizes, or even the exit options and their limitations. If you are thinking about buying your first home or just want to find out more about the different options available, I'll link these videos in the description below. And if you want more unbiased HDB and condo videos, remember to like and subscribe.